Academy, the only show that is dedicated to putting 10,000 new lifters on the platform in 2012. I'm Nick Horton, and you are who, sir?
Michael Hartman.
All right. So, my math advisor in school, he said, if you're going to give a presentation or you're going to be in front of an audience saying anything, make sure, if you do nothing else, you better explain your title. You better at least have, and your subtitle. Make sure people know what in the world you just said, or else that's kind of a waste. So I'm going to go ahead and maybe we can go over that a little bit. So Weightlifting Academy, basically we're just trying to put together a show here, a place, weightliftingacademy.com, where you audience people, can get all your needs met, basically, when it comes to weightlifting. You're new to weightlifting. That's the kind of people that Michael and I like to deal with. You're new to Olympic weightlifting, then odds are you got more questions than you got answers. And I'm kind of in the same boat, actually. I got more questions than I got answers. But I may be able to help you. Michael may be able to help you. And in fact, we are in the process pretty regularly of helping people. That's kind of what we do for a living. So I'm a weightlifting coach out in Portland, Oregon. The problem here that we've got in this country is that there just aren't very many weightlifting coaches.
No.
So if you're interested in this stuff, you just can't find people. And the way I see it is there is a big issue in the country in that two issues. One, you can't find enough. There aren't enough people who even know what weightlifting is. And two, the people who do know what weightlifting is can't find enough people to help them become better weightlifters. So Weightlifting Academy is basically dedicated to fixing both of those problems. Can you add to that maybe a little bit?
No, I think you hit on all our key points in our mission statement. 10,000 lifters in the year 2012, and it's funny you and I are being involved in weightlifting. I think we hear 10,000 and think that's going to be a big increase in numbers, probably double what's currently on the platform.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, that's pretty small. There's probably 10,000 members of LA Fitness in South Florida or Southern California.
Yeah, I got my buddy Mike Cook, who's a master's level weightlifter. He's won masters in his weight class a couple times, and he's even gone to the Open, the American Open, qualified for that. And he's in his 40s. So that's pretty impressive, just all by itself. But yeah. He came in from gymnastics. Like, he used to be a gymnast for a very long time, and he still is a judge quite often for the sport of gymnastics.
Sure.
And we joked about that, how the reality is that there actually are at least 10,000 competitors in gymnastics in Portland, just where I live.
Yeah.
There's probably something close to that anyway. Maybe my numbers are off, but it's not by far.
Yeah.
And there's just a billion gymnastics coaches, and there's a bunch of places to do gymnastics here. It's a competitive thing, and that's just one sport. And that is unlike Olympic lifting, I would consider gymnastics a pretty hard sport to get into, in that the equipment requirements are astronomical.
Yeah, tenfold that of Olympic weightlifting, right, because of all the different disciplines and everything else. We just need a barbell and a place to drop it. They need actual equipment.
You need actual stuff. Yeah. I mean, other than chalk, we don't really, we don't share a lot there. And so, yeah, it's funny. I mean, I think in Olympic lifting, we have a tendency to act, without thinking about it. We're thinking small.
Yeah.
We're not thinking big about what's possible for the sport. Like, in other countries, there are countries out there where Olympic lifting is a household thing. I mean, people, they don't do it necessarily, but they know what it is.
Sure.
Whereas in the United States, that is not even close to true, and yet the luge is something everybody knows. They know what that is.
Yeah.
How weird is that? I mean, that's a strange sport. You can't just do the luge on the weekend.
You know how many luge tracks there are in the U.S.?
How many?
How many actual competitive luge tracks? Two. One in Lake Placid, one in Park City, Utah. Yeah. And they both were built. They both were built for the Olympic Games, and that those were the only two luge and bobsled tracks in the entire U.S. Everywhere else, you have to go outside the country. But yeah, you're right. More people know about luge than know about the sport of Olympic weightlifting, and I think that's why Weightlifting Academy is here, and hopefully we can change that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to have a mission in life. That's the thing. That's our thing. And so we definitely want you to jump on board because I mean, obviously, if you're listening to this right now, odds are you know what weightlifting is,
Hopefully.
and that means you're going to be a part of that. And even though you got your own questions, I mean, you're leaps and bounds above where most people are, and then obviously you love this sport, so we're going to really try to empower you to help us and yourself in making this a much more popular sport, making this something that can go a little more mainstream, and making it more possible actually for. Yeah, I mean, once we do that, obviously it means you're going to have a better chance at finding a place to train. I mean, this is a serious issue, right?
Absolutely.
When I first started in Olympic weightlifting, which was kind of late for a weightlifter. It's not late. I mean, some people are starting at weightlifting and they're in their 50s. I was in my late 20s, but I looked around for a club and I couldn't find one. I mean, I Googled, I looked through the phone book because there used to be phone books, and there was nothing. I mean, there was absolutely not one program in Portland that I could have gone to teach me how to do Olympic lifts. I learned later on that there were some guys like a couple hours away, one of them being Tom Hertz, who's totally awesome, who could have taught me what I needed to know, but I would have had to travel for hours in order to get there. So that's not realistic. I can't go there like 4 or 5 times a week, right? So I had to just figure this stuff out of books and make really slow progress and stuff. And it took a very long time for me to become even marginally decent. And to me, I feel like that's a real travesty, and it's a problem that the sport is facing. That it takes somebody who's a little bit of a maniac like me to say, well, there's not a single Olympic lifting club in the entire city. So clearly what I need to do is I need to start an Olympic weightlifting club and start coaching people because, I know what I'm doing. And I figure stuff out along the way. That's a really hard road to travel, and it's kind of a ridiculous thing to do. So most of you are not going to be like, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start a weightlifting club.
Run out and start my own club. Hopefully they won't have to, though. Hopefully, I think the last year or two, things have started to pick up, and hopefully that wave is still rising. And I think more clubs are going to open up, and more gyms are going to add platforms and facilities. So hopefully everybody won't have to run out and start their own club. They can get with a club and get with a experienced coach, and
right.
And it makes the learning curve a lot easier. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's night and day. It's crazy. I mean, I often joke, and it's not actually a joke. It's serious, but it sounds like a joke. That I could take anyone who walks in my gym tomorrow. I guarantee you in about 3 to 6 months, they're going to have made more progress than I made in the first 3 to 6 years.
Yeah.
And the reason is just simply because I'm able to steer them away from all the stupid stuff that I did. I did everything wrong because I was learning on my own out of books and, trying to watch videos and stuff. And, by video, I didn't even have YouTube because YouTube didn't exist. So it was like the old Iron Mind videos, and I gathered up as many of those as I could get, and I would just watch them over and over and over again. And they're a great resource. They're really cool. But that's not the same as having somebody there to tell you, that right there, that was bad, and this right here, this is good, and move you along. And what's cool about the internet is that, you don't actually have to have somebody right there every single session now. Obviously, it's going to be great if you do, but, not everybody needs that. If you're not a high school kid who wants to be a future Olympian, you don't really, the word need might be a bit strong if we're saying you need to have a coach there at every single session. That's not really true, but you do need to have some guidance. Absolutely. And what's cool about the net is that now, you've got us. You've got people who can, all you got to do is Facebook us, right? Or you ask comments in the comments section, you put your YouTube videos in there and say, hey, look at this YouTube video, and you can have that guidance from people that I was not able to have in the beginning because that kind of online community for weightlifting didn't exist. And that's phenomenal that we're in a place where that happens.
Yeah, I agree, and I think we can pull a lot for some other sports. And obviously, if you were an aspiring golfer and you wanted to improve your game of golf, you would go out and hire a coach. It doesn't mean that coach is going to follow you around for all 18 holes every time you go out and play golf. But it's somebody you come back to once a week, twice a week, maybe one time a month. get some feedback, make sure that the stuff that you guys, practice together, learn together, that you're still doing. And I think weightlifting is the same way.
Yeah.
Unlimited resources, unlimited, time and availability would be great for coaches and athletes. But like you said, it is not need. There is no longer, or there is not a prerequisite that you do not need a coach with you every single session. It would help for sure, but I think any feedback you can get, the more frequently, the better. But it doesn't have to be every lift, every set, every day. It could just be once a week or even once a month.
Oh man, yeah. It's interesting. I sort of think of it like we got this sort of exponential curve thing going, where in the very, very beginning, it's the most important, like your first day, right?
Sure.
It's the most important that you have a very, very clear, exact plan, and you do that one thing. And then the next step, it's maybe a little less of a big step, and the next step's a little less of a big step. And then pretty quickly, really. I mean, I would argue, I think there's a reason why your first book is called, the first 8 weeks. And my book, Samurai Strength, is just 12 weeks. We're not talking a very long time here. That's about the length of time it takes to where you need to have like just an exact freaky deaky plan that's step by step, where you do precisely this and you don't waver. After that, it really starts slowing down, where it becomes way more individual. You're starting to get a feel for yourself. You don't really need to see your coach every 5 seconds. I've got lifters who I've had for a couple of years now who, I don't want to say I ignore them. That's maybe a little strong. But in the gym, there's something to that. I will focus on the lifters who need the help in the moment.
Sure. You trust the experienced guy.
I trust their experience.
They're always having coming in. Yeah, I think trust is an important thing, and I see the same thing in the gym I coach at as well. Where the first, like you said, first week they come in, I'm on the platform, next to them, just every rep, making sure it's the same.
Yeah.
And then like a mama bird letting their babies go off and fly.
It's a little hard, yeah.
The second week, third week, I'm still right there. But then, by then there's new people coming in the gym, and they need a lot more attention than the people that have been there for a month. Right. So you trust them at that point. And if you do your job, the more front end work you do, the better things run after that. So yeah, I think trust is a good thing, that you trust your athletes to do what they're supposed to.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, I was going to ask you a question. So I do have that feeling like when you're a coach and you're first starting out, you tend to overcoach too much. You get so finicky, and you want them to do this exact thing, and you're afraid that if you don't tell them to do something, they won't do it. They're probably going to do it wrong, right?
Yeah.
There's no way they're going to do it right unless I say it, and I'm hounding them every 5 seconds. And over time, I know, at least for me, I've really, really pulled back. I've dialed in some things that I feel like I make sure I tell people immediately. I feel like you're not going to just magically know how to do this thing.
Yeah.
But my almost trying, like, my plan is, well, if I get the skeletal structure right, they'll fill in all the rest. Sure. On their own. And that's a little different for different people, but that's kind of the goal. How do you feel about that? Kind of the intuitive.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, it's trust, and every now and then someone surprises you, but for the most part, within the first couple times that they grab a barbell, you kind of know what you're working with, and we typically, first time somebody comes into the gym, they may just they come in, they talk to myself or somebody else, and they'll watch and they'll see what's going on, and then the first time we get them on the platform, it's like, okay, grab this, wooden dowel. We're starting with just a wooden stick, and we show them the overhead position in a snatch, and if they put it in the right spot the very first time, the teaching is going to be a little bit easier. Or if that person grabs the stick and they're like, what do you want me to do with it? Where do I hold it? Then they're going to need a little smaller cues, smaller instructions, but you can tell pretty quick. Or the first time you teach somebody how to squat, something as simple as a squat, that if with 10 minutes of talking, or less than that, 5 minutes of talking, if they're doing an acceptable squat, learning how to snatch, learning how to clean is going to be a lot easier. But we've both been there, I'm sure, where you try to teach somebody how to squat, and a half hour later you're convincing them that your knees are supposed to bend this way. They're not supposed to stop.
Sure, yeah.
And yeah, every now and then someone surprises you, but you can tell pretty quick who's going to get it and who might not.
Yeah, how much work you're going to need to put in at the front end. Yeah, that's interesting. I think actually as a sense of motivation, sometimes I really like to bring up. I got this lifter, Chris, who's he's also a friend of mine, become a friend of mine. When he first walked in the door, he's certainly one of the strongest lifters I got now. But when he first walked in the door, I could swear he was the worst lifter I'd ever seen. I had never seen somebody who I just wrote off like immediately. He came in actually on this. It was funny. The day he came in with another guy. I don't remember the guy's name because he was only there for like 2 days. This other guy. The other guy really just he was just exactly like you're saying. Like he just kind of picked it up pretty fast. He was really, really quick to understand how the body's supposed to move, and he was already pretty mobile and flexible. So I didn't have to worry about that kind of stuff. Chris, on the other hand, oh man, he could. I mean, his arms were like, Frankenstein there, and
flexibility of a 2x4.
Yes, exactly. And it was a struggle. But here's the cool part. The cool part is, in the last couple of years, I could count on one hand the number of days Chris has missed a workout.
Nice.
That he didn't email me in advance about. Where I was just like, "Where's Chris?" That almost never happens. He's been in the gym. He's in his 30s, and we're not talking about a young kid here. We're talking about a guy who's full time. He's a teacher. He's a math teacher, but he just fell in love with the sport. He does it constantly. He's been doing it for a couple of years. He now can clean and jerk around 300 pounds. He's a strong dude. I mean, not a lot of human beings can walk around doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Body weight snatch took him a while, but he did it. And I wouldn't say he's the most flexible person on the face of the planet, but he's doing pretty good. And he's actually, he's usually the guy who, when people walk in the gym, they're impressed by him right off the bat, just because the amount of sheer weight he's moving. And he's just a big, strong dude. And that's amazing to me. That consistency, woo! Yeah. That does miracles. And so I would always rather have somebody walk in the gym with the right attitude like that.
Attitude, yep.
Attitude, yeah. Then some kind of superhero X-Men powers. That stuff's all nice and stuff, but if you don't have the right attitude, it's worthless. It gets you nowhere.
Find the combination of somebody who has the X-Men ability and the right attitude. Weightlifting Academy.com. Send them our way, and we'll hook them up too, right?
Yeah, we'll hook you up.
I think you hit on several good points there with your example of Chris, right? It's not where you start at. It's how much work are you willing to put in and the right attitude. And then the idea that Olympic weightlifting is unique in the sense that anybody can do it. It's not, I think for the longest time in this country, it was thought that if you're not starting when you're 14, you're wasting your time. And that may be true if your goal is the Olympic Games, but you know what? Not everyone's going to make the Olympics. Even if we all did start at 14, there's only going to be at most 8, 7, 8 spots.
Oh man, totally. There's some of the most talented people in the country right now will not make the Olympics.
No, and that's no fault of their own. That's just it's just how things go. But you don't have to start the sport of Olympic weightlifting for the ultimate goal of winning an Olympic medal. Stars line up and you get the right kid. That's an ultimate goal. But for 99.9% of people, that's not a goal. And you look at a sport that has some of the biggest the biggest numbers in the U.S. And I mean, think of runners. And offhand, do you know how many big marathons Portland has a year?
Oh, I don't know. It seems like there's one, I swear, every couple of months or something like that.
Sure. Dallas, Fort Worth's basically the same. And I'd say there's probably 4 or 5 big, not just a 5K. There's a 5K race every weekend and multiple 5K races every weekend in Dallas, Fort Worth. Probably about 4 big marathons a year. And one of the biggest probably gets somewhere around 15,000, 20,000 runners to compete in the marathon. I mean, how many of those people are trying to win? Not very many.
Right.
And if they approach running or completing the marathon like the way some people think you have to approach Olympic weightlifting, there would only be 3 people training. Kendrick, Ghani, and Chad would be the only people, and a couple other guys would be the only ones training in the entire country. And that's just not the case. And as soon as we get out of that mindset, I think bigger things are going to happen. The 10,000 in 2012. It's about competing with yourself. It's about improving strength, power. It's about improving health. There's tons of benefits of it. Winning medals would be an ultimate goal, but that's just a small percentage of the entire membership.
Oh, absolutely, man. And it sort of, I don't like the perpetual focus on just winning medals, in part because I think it devalues the weightlifting of all these other people. It's just like you're saying, the marathon. Like, what are the motivators underneath why all these other people are running marathons?
To get better. And
get better.
If they have their chosen way, getting better, and we drive past them in our car on the way to the gym. But
I'm not going to run a marathon.
No, you wouldn't pay me to.
I'm just not capable.
We have vehicles for a reason, right? But I'm not going to take away somebody's pursuit of a goal. That's an awesome thing.
Absolutely.
But if Chris would have came in the first day of the gym and you looked at him and said, "Well, you're 30. You should have came back. Should have came to me 20 years ago. And we could have worked on something." That's just the wrong attitude. Welcome in, teach him the list, let him improve, and the rest will take care of itself. Whether he wants to compete and win medals in local meets or national meets, or if he just wants to train to be a badass, I think Olympic weightlifting is the way to go, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah,
it definitely makes you cooler than everybody else around you.
Yeah. Putting heavy weights over heads is a pretty cool thing, it's medals are nice. Don't get me wrong. I'm very competitive. I think in a sport context, if you're going to compete in a sport, you should compete to win. But it's not just about competition, and I think that's an important distinction. It's about just improving yourself and improving technique, getting stronger, being more powerful, and just being a better version of you.
Yeah, if you can look every year and say, wow, over the course of this last year, I made these improvements. That gives you a sense of pride and accomplishment that really is going to carry over to other things.
Absolutely.
That all the stuff they say in school about the reasons why you should play a sport, they're all true, right? I mean, they could be true if you have the right mindset. They're true.
Yeah,
if you come at it and you say, hey, man, I want to focus in. I want to learn actually how and get better at the ability to focus, get better at the ability to be consistent. Get better at the ability to work hard. All these are skills. They're not just things you're born with magically, right? I mean, these are things you get better at by doing them. And it's ridiculous that wouldn't carry over. Of course, it's going to carry over to anything else that you do in your life. And that, I mean, that's a worthy goal for anyone, is to say, I want to improve my skills at those things that are the most important to all of life. That, and weightlifting is such a great way to do it. I mean, I feel like, one of the reasons I feel like kind of an evangelist for weightlifting is because I really believe that fundamentally, if you try hard to get better at something that is itself very hard, you're going to learn a lot about yourself. Sure. And what you're going to learn is going to be pretty impressive. You're going to learn that you can do things that, man, you never thought were possible. And that's a sense of confidence that's like, you know what? I did that one thing that I thought was impossible, and I did it. I wonder what other things I used to think were impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, that just opens up all kinds of doors and windows for yourself. I mean, that's so cool to me.
And that's something you can't buy. You have to experience it yourself. It's the journey of improving and getting better. And like you said, once you do something, I mean, first time someone snatches body weight or squats 180 kilos, and they never thought that was possible the first time they came into the gym. That lets them know, I'm capable of a lot more. A human body is pretty remarkable when you ask it to do something.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of room for improvement and growth in the sport.
Oh, man, absolutely. Yeah, that's huge. It's so big. Lost my train of thought. Man, this happens to me.
That's why we have editing, right?
That's exactly right. So I do want to say, Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, we've talked a little bit about the, why I think what draws us both to the sport, the sense of accomplishment, the journey. But what was the first thing that drew you to the sport of Olympic weightlifting outside of other barbell sports or other things?
Yeah, that's a good question actually. So yeah, I did start. I mean, I actually started working out and stuff when I was around 14. My
Flex
dad had
magazine, muscle fitness,
muscle and
Flex
fitness
mag.
kind of stuff. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Flex magazine. Yep, yep. My dad had some weights in the garage, and he was really into lifting weights. So, I just started toying around with them, and I didn't get all that serious till I was maybe 16, 17. But, it was all definitely just bodybuilding stuff at that point. That's all I even knew existed. I didn't even know, at that age, I didn't even know powerlifting existed, let alone Olympic lifting. I mean, it was
Yeah,
just bodybuilding. That's all I knew.
sure.
But I loved it. I mean, I loved lifting weights. I thought it was so cool. I loved that it was changing my body, and making me. Well, I'm going to say bigger, but that's a strongly relative term. I graduated high school about 128 pounds of
Oh,
all muscle,
yeah,
sheer muscle and vascularity. Uh,
yeah,
but I would have been a great 53 kilo female. That would have
yeah, yeah.
56 kilo female. What 56 is the man, so yeah, 53.
58.
But I ended up sticking with it for the long haul, and I never stopped lifting since then. So I've been lifting consistently really since then. But I started shifting over what I was doing when I was lifting. So somewhere in
Sure.
my early 20s, around 2021, I discovered powerlifting. I was at this gym that had a bunch of powerlifters in it, and got into that. Discovered I really, really liked deadlifting. I loved
Yeah.
it. I loved squatting. That was a lot of fun. I hated bench pressing with a passion.
Yeah.
Although I did go experiment for a while. I did 3 months where I did nothing but bench press. Didn't even work my
Yeah.
rest of my body, and my bench got to 360 pounds,
Nice.
not kilo. Let's be very clear about that since we are talking
Yeah.
to weightlifters. And that was pretty cool. It's only 150 pounds, so that was actually a pretty serious bench at the time. Although it was very much a powerlifting bench. I mean, we're talking like a
Sure.
massive arch,
Sure.
that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And that was it. So that was not a bad bench. However, I couldn't at the same time have a big bench and have a big squat and deadlift because I had to stop deadlifting and squatting. And so then when I got back on the train of squatting and deadlifting, my bench dropped
Right
to like,
time.
to like 285 or something like that. While I had a bigger squat and deadlift. So yeah, I hated the bench, but all along the while I was really slowly getting into the Milo journals
Sure.
and watching those DVDs, and I was just like fascinated by Olympic lifting. I thought it was so amazing. But I had never even tried a power clean before. I mean, nothing.
Yep.
I only vaguely understood the difference between a snatch and a clean. I certainly did not understand what it would take to do those things.
Yeah.
But it was mostly reading those that got me into it because one, they introduced it to me, and I would not have known they existed if I hadn't got the introduction. So I definitely credit Bill Starr, I think, with being the main guy who got me into it because he wrote a bunch of articles on like technique and other things like that. I'm a split snatcher, by the way. Bill Starr was a split snatcher,
Yeah.
and he wrote
preaches.
an article once about how to
Snatch.
split snatch, and it kind of inspired me. But that's what did it. I mean, it was really just because some people out there, Randall Strawson, who's the editor of Milo, and Bill Starr, who was one of the writers, were pushing the sport out there to a more general strength training audience. And I think that's cool because it's basically what we're trying to do right now. Is we're doing the same thing. Like, okay, well, let's
Absolutely.
stand on the shoulders of giants here, and let's expand it out even farther.
And if you think about it though, just you were very fortunate to define Milo because it's not you can't go to Barnes and Noble and scroll the magazine rack and find it.
That's true. Maybe we should
very much-
explain what it is. Maybe people don't know what it is.
Milo is a quarterly journal that comes out in a soft cover. It's magazine, but it's much more like a small book every 3 months.
Yeah, you're really getting what you pay for sure, man.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it's not your typical. I'm not sure there's any internal ads. It's just all the content is strength sports. So
Yeah.
Highland Games, powerlifting, arm wrestling, but there is a big
all the
focus
cool
on,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, exactly all the cool. There's no bodybuilding, but there'll be strongman, some grip stuff,
Right.
arm wrestling. But there is a big focus on Olympic weightlifting, and that's just because I think Randall Strawson has an appreciation, and he publishes the DVDs now, the Iron Mind Training Hall DVDs. But yeah, Milo is a lot of people don't know about that. So for you to find that is pretty impressive, and then from that develop a passion for Olympic weightlifting just through written word, I think speaks volumes to the writing of Bill Starr, the publication
Great writer,
of Randall Strawson, and just to be able to develop that passion early on.
Yeah, I guess when I look back on it, I go, okay, I can see the path on how it happened, but it's awfully random, like, and that is so unfortunate. Like, I mean, how easy would it have been for me not to have stumbled across that? So easy, and maybe I would have just stayed in powerlifting or whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with powerlifting. Powerlifting is a pretty cool sport, but I do love weightlifting. There's something about weightlifting that fits my personality a little bit better because I'm not just into the heavy strength stuff. I like the technical side. I mean, I have a math degree for a reason because I like things that are complicated, and you really got to get your mind around and bang your head against the wall for a while before you get it right. I love that about math where, me and a bunch of buddies would sit there next to a chalkboard for sometimes days on end trying to solve a single problem. And, that seems miserable and horrible to most people. But it was so cool because by the time you get it done and you get it, there's that, like we said before about weightlifting, you get a sense of accomplishment that you can't get through something that's easy.
No, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, if I hadn't run across a Milo, I mean, how would I have ever figured out what this sport is? How about you? Like, where did you first discover Olympic weightlifting?
Before I forget, though, I want to kind of add to that the math equation. The other thing about weightlifting, and I think I can draw a connection to the math. I'm not a math person. I went to college I was going to be an engineering major, I thought. And then I had, I realized the math course is required to do that, and I quickly changed my major. When are you finished? I mean, you finish an equation, but are you ever finished learning and studying, mathematics?
No, I mean, possible, yeah.
Just like weightlifting, right?
Yeah.
So you fix one in math, the connection. So you solve one equation, but then guess what? There's 1,000 more, there's a million more different things to break down. Weightlifting is the thing. So you set a PR. Guess what? You're not done. You're done for the day. You're done for that session, but there's more kilos to add to the bar. So you're never finished being a weightlifter.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really cool. Again, it's a really cool thing about the sport. Just you have that sense of accomplishment, but you're never done. I think it's probably the same way like a painter feels, or I know you're a musician, and like you never just reach a point where you're done being a musician. You finish a song and you record a CD, and then guess what? There's more songs out there and there's more CDs out there. So weightlifting.
The door for more stuff. Yeah.
That's why I think I love the sport too. But my first introduction to the sport was high school football, just in and training and doing a version of a power clean that you guys can look on YouTube, and thankfully YouTube wasn't around then because
Did anybody ever spot you? Have you seen that one?
No, but I have seen. I saw. It looked like it may have been like the national championship of India. They actually had spotters out on the platform during the lift, and I don't know if it was on a forum or the Weightlifting Friends Facebook group or one of those, but I guess that's more common than I. That's why Weightlifting Academy is here to correct that. No spotters in weightlifting.
That's just weird.
Yeah, besides the occasional spot, but so I got my introduction through training for sport.
Okay.
I continued, try to play and train and through college, and that kind of fell through. So then I started working in the weight room as the student assistant strength and conditioning coach. And I was fortunate to be in an environment that the university I went to, we had 23 varsity sports, male and female. Every single sport used the Olympic lifts to prepare for, in their off-season, in-season training. So whether it was football or baseball or, ice hockey or volleyball or girls lacrosse, every team that came through that weight room used and trained on the Olympic lifts, snatch, clean,
yeah.
and the variations.
That's really lucky, man.
Yeah, because it's more common now, but this is mid '90s,
right?
And there used to be a big push for like high intensity training where colleges were getting rid of barbells and replacing everything with machines, and it was
you and I are about the same age. And you're right. At the time we were in high school, the early '90s. That was HIIT Central, man. If you've ever heard of that one, it's the high intensity training. It's you go to. On the surface, it's going to sound very Bulgarian, but it's actually not. We can talk about that in a future episode. But basically, you just go to a heavy lift once, and then take like a week off.
I can tell you how at the time the Baltimore Ravens. I was kind of fortunate enough to do some observation during college, and they were a hit team, and they were probably in the NFL at the time. They were probably over half the team, so at least 16 teams probably were hit centric. They literally had a weight room it was all machines. They had 4 rows of machines, and each workout was an entire row. So it was almost like a circuit, but it wasn't fast-paced.
So it's like curves, but for football players.
Exactly. That's the best example. So you would start with a leg press, and then you would move on to like a seated chest press, and you would move on to like a lat pull down. Yeah. And you would move into a tricep movement and a bicep movement, and you were done. And it was just one set, taken to failure, like 10 to 12 reps, move on to the next machine, move on to the next machine, move on to the next machine. So that was the push in the mid-'90s. And like I said, lots of teams, it may not have been half, but it was a lot of teams in the NFL were kind of going that direction. They thought, well, they're not getting paid to train the weight room, they're getting paid to practice. And for whatever reason, people lost the connection between performance in the weight room and performance on the field. So the school I was at in the mid-'90s, thankfully, had a weight room that was still all platforms and bumpers. And had the school had more money, they probably would have replaced all of it, but they were stuck with squat racks and platforms and bars and bumpers.
And every once in a while, poverty does you some good.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't. It's expensive, For as much as we complain about the cost of a new competition set, or even competition, a good training set, barbell, set of bumpers, you're talking, $1,500, $2,000. That doesn't buy you much in terms of machine. It buys you half a leg extension machine.
Yeah, we joke about that at the gym all the time. Like if we could just get rid of all of our stuff to get like a leg curl machine.
Exactly. That's the fair trade. So the school I was at, we had weightlifting movements in the training of athletes. So my real first introduction coaching the lifts was coaching athletes to perform the lifts, and that I was training them and using them myself. And then I started to develop just a more of an appreciation for the lifts, and I started like seeking out resources about how can I best learn these lifts at the time, still for sports performance, but learning the weightlifting movements. And then one thing led to another, and I was looking at graduate programs at the time, and I got pretty fortunate. And there was a guy that it sounds funny now, but nobody had really ever heard of Glenn Pendley at the time, but he was coaching. Glenn Pendley. He's kind of a big deal on the internet, right? But this is back in 2000, 2001, and he had just started a weightlifting team out in Wichita Falls, Texas, and there was an affiliation with a university out there. And so I was looking at graduate programs, and I was presented the opportunity where I could work on a master's degree, do research in the laboratory, and coach weightlifting. And the bonus was all the research was going to be on weightlifters. So I literally jumped at that opportunity, and I just kind of blind faith and just kind of thinking this is going to be pretty cool. Nothing else would make a good story about a kid from Baltimore moving out to a town I literally had never heard of. Yeah. And I was coaching and doing some research on weightlifting. Then the rest was just following the sport, and it's a sport, especially at that time, that you had to have a passion for, because there just wasn't there weren't any, and there still really aren't, financial rewards for competing in the sport. Yeah. There weren't a lot of resources for coaches. but it's a very good network of people. And I've met tons of really great people from the sports science side and the coaching side. And then once you're kind of in that fraternity, it builds upon itself, and you meet more people, and you realize there are other people just like you in other parts of the country. When you go to a national meet, and you realize, oh, there's other teams and there's other coaches, and they're doing the same thing. It's no different than you and I are right now. That you're sitting in Portland, Oregon, and I'm sitting in Fort Worth, Texas, and we're talking about weightlifting, and that's it's a real cool community. So first introduction was through Training for Sport. Lucky enough to work with a great coach in Glenn, and again, just kind of build on that passion. And then since then, I've been involved in a little bit on the research side, and I was out Olympic Training Center for about a year for a research project that, again, introduced me to tons of great people and athletes, and then, led to one thing, led to another, and now I'm doing a little bit of everything, sports science and research. And also, writing and blogging about Olympic weightlifting, and I'm still in the gym coaching Olympic weightlifters, 3 or 4 days per week. So it's a lifestyle.
Sleeping, you don't do any of that.
Small little pieces here and there.
Yeah, I can relate, man. I was up at 3:30 this morning.
Oh, you beat me. Okay, I was up 3. Well, yeah, I got up at 3:45. We have a 6-month-old who also doesn't like to sleep.
Yeah, congratulations about that, man. This has been a good year for you. Yeah,
I appreciate that. I take that back. He does he sleeps. He sleeps well when he does sleep, but I think he got that from me, where he'd rather be up doing stuff than just sleeping in bed.
Like the hustle. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So he likes all sorts of stuff, but no. So weightlifting was, again, just kind of like I said. Now things are better, which is nice, and I'm glad for that. But you kind of had to get lucky, and I'm thinking even before, like I said, we're in our early 30s, mid 30s, and the generation even before us, they didn't even have the resources we had,
Oh man, yeah.
But now, I think through our podcast and through our blogs and through great YouTube channels and out in Las Vegas, John's team and Glenn's team in California, and the sport's definitely got a higher profile, and I hope we're riding that wave, and it's building bigger and bigger and bigger. And like I said, 10,000 in 2012 is a very, very realistic goal, and I think we can accomplish that.
Yeah, I think so too, man. I wanted to kind of jump on that. The idea about the positive community aspect. That was the thing that struck me the very first time I did my very first competition. I was blown away by how nice everybody was.
Yeah.
People were pretty nice in the other sports I tried, but I think weightlifting particularly tends to attract, people of a fairly like mind. Maybe they have different backgrounds and stuff like that, but there's something they all have to share, and that is that they have to like things that are hard, right? Yeah. I mean, not everybody's like that. Some people are going to be like, you're out of your mind. I am not going to work that hard for that long to kind of be able to snatch.
Yeah.
That just sounds horrible. Like, why would I do that? But the people for whom that seems like, man, that's an awesome idea. I want to get really good at that super complicated thing. Those are cool people. They remind me a lot, actually, of the people I met when I was in my math degree. A lot of the engineer friends I have, people like that, people who are they have graduate degrees or whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, pick something that's pretty complicated to do, and it takes a certain kind of personality to actually find that interesting to do. Like, to not just be, well, I'm doing it because my parents told me to or something,
Yeah, exactly.
Being forced into it. I'm doing it because for what I find this kind of thing, it's just passion-inducing.
Sure.
That is cool, and it means that, I go to these competitions, and I was just like, wow, these people are awesome. I really relate to these people. And everybody's real nice, and it's just every time I get a new lifter in the gym, of course, they're very nervous about the idea of doing their first competition.
Yep.
Super nervous about it. Like, oh, I'm going to look like a fool. I'm not going to lift very much weight, blah, 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 blah. Then they do their first competition and realize, oh, this is great. Like, this is the coolest thing. So I'm always trying to push people into competition as fast as humanly possible just to get them over that fear and get them to realize, like, hey, you know what? There's a lot of people out there. They're just like you. They're in the same boat as you. But they're all really cool, and you're going to actually meet some friends that you would have never met without them. So, it's definitely, the community aspect is pretty huge. I definitely agree with that.
And I hope we can build on that. I hope Weightlifting Academy becomes a place where people can turn to for information on the sport,
right.
Education on the sport from a performance standpoint, a coaching standpoint, how to develop a team, how to develop yourself as a lifter.
Yeah.
But if this podcast, especially, is really set up for again, you guys, the audience. And questions, feedback, comments, concerns, dirty jokes, send them our way. All right.
Yeah, we like those. Those are good.
Yeah, we want comments. We want email. We want information. If there's something that you're, if you're like us and you're up at crazy hours thinking about how can I improve my snatch? Shoot us an email. Right. We'll try to address that, and we'll give you some information. And
definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the community. It's all about, again, you guys, the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to, I was going to say that this is not at all related to what you just said, by the way. So here it is, tangent. This way.
Yeah. full of tangents, too.
Yeah. I'm a tangential guy, man. It's all that math. I was wondering, we recorded this podcast, actually. We did this yesterday, and totally the audio and everything just got destroyed and screwed up because we're fairly new to this. So we're doing it again, and actually I think this is even better than what we did yesterday. But see, yesterday I had my awesome PDX weightlifting shirt on, and I had a good branding thing going. And I was like, yeah, see, my own club, go to pdxweightlifting.com. I don't have that on today, but I do have my friend JC Dean's shirt on. Check this out, JC Dean Fitness. He's a pretty cool cat, and it makes me think of what okay, I was wrong. It's not a tangent. I'm bringing it back around. That we are trying with this concept, and actually what we've been doing with our own blogs, actually, and our own outreach on the internet, to go beyond preaching to the converted all the time.
Yeah.
That it's not just about saying, well, there's currently 6,000 members of USA Weightlifting in this country, or around there. The point here is not to always go talking in the most, insider's way, with using terminology you've never even heard of before, in such a way that you're going to feel like, man, okay, that's all cool and stuff, but it doesn't actually help me. I don't know what's going on within their conversation. It seems like these are two guys talking about something I've never heard of before or never really understood. Instead, I really want to. What we really are looking at is let's bring the conversation to the mainstream. Sure. So my buddy here, JC Dean from JC Dean Fitness, he's not an Olympic weightlifter, but he's really into strength training, and. Yeah. We email back and forth a lot about, he asked me questions about, I want to get into front squatting more. That's like a gateway drug. The front squat is a gateway drug, man. I'm going to get JC to do some snatches at some point, I promise you. And I think most people are this way, where they're going to need to go through some steps.
Sure. To
get there. Maybe they're going to do some CrossFit, or maybe they came from powerlifting, or maybe they just did some general bodybuilding stuff. And I really love the idea of saying, you know what, this stuff can be, and it's almost the rightful place for it is in the mainstream. Yeah. Because yes, it's complicated and all that kind of stuff, and we sometimes overemphasize that maybe a little bit because we're excited about the complicated parts of it. But the truth is, you can go very far and do a lot pretty quickly. It's surprising how quickly you can put somebody on the platform in a competition if they really wanted to do that. Or even if all you want to do is just snatch and clean to make yourself better at whatever you're doing. It's not that hard. I mean, we make such a big thing out of it. It's actually not that hard to be decent at a snatch and a clean. Do a simple power snatch, a simple power clean. That is not the hardest thing in the world. You can actually do that. Anybody can do that. It just, you just have to decide to, really.
Yeah.
That's basically it. Just decide to, and you can do it. So if you're scared about it, I mean, I think increasing the weightlifting confidence of the country could be a big thing. You know, like I hear all the time people saying, "Oh, Olympic weightlifting, very cool looking stuff, but that freaks me out."
Yeah.
Or, you know, that looks too hard.
Yeah.
So it's one thing to say, no, they know what it is. That's a good first step. Second step is, do they feel confident enough to even try it? Because if they don't feel confident enough to try it, well, they're not going to try it, and they're not going to do it. And that doesn't, that actually, you know, we've gotten somewhere, but we haven't gotten as far as we want to go. And so I really love the idea of, you know, I mean, people, I get sort of harped on a little bit sometimes for maybe seeing as a guy who's dumbing stuff down or something. And I think that's a really, that's a horrible way to put things. I don't think of it that way at all. It's called teaching things to people who don't know what it is, right? Like, I mean, is a math teacher dumbing stuff down for you? That's not the appropriate way to think of it.
It's actually how you teach.
That's how you teach. Yeah.
You teach to the level of the student, right? So
Correct. Yeah.
the way, you know, if we were talking to strictly Olympic weightlifters, we would speak to weightlifters in those terms. But like you said, people coming in for, you know, different sports, or if they're using, you know, we want people who want to use Olympic weightlifting to better their passions. We think, like you said, Olympic weightlifting is a good way to do that. If you're a power lifter, and, you know, adding front squats to your routine is going to improve your powerlifting total, you know, within reason. You're a CrossFit athlete, perfecting your technique in the snatch and clean and jerk is going to improve your performance in CrossFit. Every you know, every CrossFit Games and the open competition and the national, you know, the main CrossFit Games that are on ESPN2 now, they use pieces of Olympic weightlifting, right? So what better place to learn the Olympic weightlifting movements than from Olympic weightlifting coaches, right? So we want people who want to, you know, improve. So, you know, bring them in and learn from us, steal from us. Not steal from us, but, you know, take our ideas, run with them. You know, send people back, weightliftingacademy.com, and we'll teach them too.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's great. Yeah. So, yeah, it's probably about time to wrap this up a little bit, but I think that was pretty solid. I think everybody's gonna now know a little bit about what the point of all this is. You know, there's a lot of resources out there, ever growing, but we want to provide a nice centralized place where, you know, the new revolution of weightlifting, this new movement of Olympic lifting can really thrive, have a home base, I guess, if you will. So go to weightliftingacademy.com, check it out. We're going to have an episode every week, talking about different things, and I really want you to add comments to the comment section, or email us, or get us on Facebook, whatever, because we're going to definitely spend time talking about it. If you got a good comment, and we'll discuss it right here on the air, and answer it for you, because this stuff isn't so complicated that you can't do it. It's not.
Exactly.
You can do it. Anybody can do it. It's just a matter of deciding to and having fun with it, and we're all about having fun with it. So check it out, weightliftingacademy.com. This year, 2012, put 10,000 new lifters on the platform. You're going to help us out. All right. Thanks, Michael.
Nick, good talking to you. This is the first of many, many podcasts, and I look forward to it, buddy.
Absolutely, my man. All right.
Thank you.